We're now moving into our lecture on attachment theory, and please forgive my subtitle for this portion of the lecture, Get Ready to Squirm. I just say that because this lecture has a tendency to make all of us shift and squirm a little bit in our seat because it makes us recognize or reflect on how we behave in our relationships, things that are good and things that maybe we wish weren't so. So we're talking about attachment theory. And attachment theory is really appropriate. I mean, I chose to put it after family for a reason, because as we're going to talk about the way that we enter into relationships with others, primarily we're thinking about romantic relationships, but all other relationships, the way that we go into them, which is what attachment theory talks about, is strongly affected by our family. Because our family is where we start. Our family is, I mean, whoever those people were that raised us, those are the people that were our first opportunity to form connections with others. And that's really important. And they set us up for how we're likely to go into future relationships. So here we are, attachment theory. I'm going to start by asking you a question. There are 4 options. I'm going to read them all off and just jot down somewhere. Just write down a letter. We'll come back to it. But we have 4 options you're going to choose from and decide which one best describes you. Now, when people do research with this theory, they don't use a single item like this, but I'm just asking one question. That is, they ask you a bunch of questions, about 50 or so. But this will give us some sense. All right, so option 1. Option A. It is easy for me to become emotionally close to others. I am comfortable depending on them and having them depend on me. I don't worry about being alone or having others not accept me. That would be A. B. I am uncomfortable getting close to others. I want emotionally close relationships, but I find it difficult to trust others completely or to depend on them. I worry that I'll be hurt if I allow myself to become too close to others. C. I want to be completely emotionally intimate with others, but I often find that others are reluctant to get as close as I would like. I am uncomfortable being without close relationships, but I sometimes worry that others don't value me as much as I value them. And D. I am comfortable without close relationships. It is very important to me to feel independent and self-sufficient, and I prefer not to depend on others or have others depend on me. So A, B, C, D, just quick thought there, just by your instinct, which one sounds right to you, just jot that letter down. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So as we're getting into attachment theory is the theory that talks about how do we go into relationships? How do we attach? How do we connect ourselves to others? We've been talking about friendship is connecting to others, romantic relationships obviously is a connection to others, families is a certain sort of connection, and really, as I said before, families where we learn these connections. So how do we go and attach ourselves to connect to others? Well, there's 2 variables we're going to look at. The view we have of ourselves and the view we have of others. And is the view of ourselves positive or negative? Do we think we're a pretty good, decent person? I mean, we've got flaws, but we're a pretty decent person. We've got a lot to offer others. And what's our, or do we feel like we're not worth a whole lot? We have go around with a lot of shame and guilt, right? And then our view of others. We think overall other people are pretty good, pretty decent, pretty trustworthy, right? They're, excuse me, they are worthy of our trust. Yeah, most people are pretty sort of decent. Or do we feel like most people, really, they're rotten? You can't trust people. Like, is it right? What's that view, positive or negative of other people? So based on those 2 variables, we end up with 4 attachment styles. We say there are 4 styles. The first one is secure, right? And so I put up there in that upper left corner, say it's cool. So as we look at these, I'm going to talk about a romantic relationship, or supposing that you're in a romantic relationship as we move through these. And in this scenario, you're in a romantic relationship, and you and your romantic partner, your lover, if you like, right? You are not going to spend the evening together. Usually you would, at the very least, have dinner together or talk on the phone, for 3 hours or something. But you're not going to on this night because your partner instead is, in the days of pandemic, it's all going to be socially distanced, but they're going to have this outdoor socially distanced hangout with some friends from their workplace where they all wear masks. Back in the day, I used to just say, after work, they're going to go out for drinks. I can't say this so much now. Okay. So, how do you feel about that? Right? If they are out with some people from work and your romantic partner, there's somebody they work with that you recognize your partner may be very attracted to. You don't know if they are for certain, but you know they could be attracted to them, and they're going to be at this hangout. How do you feel about that? Right? If you're insecure, a positive view of self and a positive view of others, your general response is, yeah, that's cool. I mean, you're like, first off, I trust that my partner is not going to just suddenly ditch me, because, I trust them, and they care about me. I'm not trash. They wouldn't just dump me and walk off. And if they did, I might be mad. I might be upset. But then I got news for you. I'd move on, right? Not because I didn't care, but just because I know that I deserve somebody better than that. That they're going to dump me for, whoever there is at this work get together. Yeah, I don't need them. I will find somebody else. I'll find somebody that I'm more deserving of, right? So that's the attitude. It's all sort of cool. So these people, because I said family is part of this, these people came from households where there was positive support for them, right? As children, they heard a lot of confirming messages about who they were, and so because of that, they believed that other people naturally are going to be good and decent, right? So as a child, they heard a lot of positive relationships about, oh, good job at school today, and that was a nice thing you did, and all these sorts of positive messages. So they feel good about themselves, and they see other people as being loving and kind. So they develop your attachment style. And I admit, as a parent, I think about this a lot, and I think, I've got to develop a secure attachment style. I can't control everything, but I think about it. So that's the secures, right? If we jump to the other end, we get the fearfuls. Fearful, also known as fearful avoidant, right? Summed up as, so again, your partner is out at this little get-together, and you're thinking, you're sitting there at home thinking, oh man, I just know they're probably flirting, and so you're getting jealous. Okay, why is not you? Why is this person who's a fearful avoidant, why are they getting jealous? Well, two things. One, they don't feel that they're worth a whole lot, right? They have a negative view of self, and so there is that sense of like, I don't know how I have this other person. They're probably gonna, that there's a chance they could leave them because they're gonna realize that I'm not as good as other people are, right? Negative view of self, and also they have a negative view of others, right? And I just, you can't trust other people. They'll break your heart. They'll hurt you. They'll leave you the first chance they get, right? And so it's that combination of, I don't know that I'm worth a whole lot, and I don't trust you. And so therefore they're very fearful, I'm going to say fearful avoidance even, in these relationships, because they just don't think that people are going to want to stay with them, and they don't trust other people. So it's fearfuls. Right? Then we move on to what is the most cognitively complex attachment style, and that's the preoccupieds. And preoccupied say, I wouldn't blame you, right? These are sort of the Eeyores, if you're familiar with the Winnie the Pooh characters, right? These really are Eeyores. So this is your partner is out after work, and they say, well, they're out with whoever the person is, and I wouldn't be surprised if they started flirting and something happened. I get it. My partner's a great person, and next to me, the other person's really interesting, right? So there's this positive view of the other person, right? And it's not like that scumbag is, I knew I can't trust them any farther than I could throw them. They're not saying that, because they see themselves as so fortunate that somebody else would care about them, right? That they expect and sort of, honestly, understand why somebody else would leave them because they just think they're not worth a whole lot, right? It's like, and so I say it's the Eeyores of the bunch. So Eeyore was the sad donkey with the tail it was pinned on, right? So Eeyores is sort of, it's okay, I understand, I wouldn't want to be with me either, right? Those are the preoccupied. And we say they're preoccupied because they're very concerned about keeping their relationship stable. Yeah, I didn't talk about the fearfuls in the family so much. So in the fearfuls, the family often did not feel like a warm and supportive place, and so they didn't develop high self-esteem, and they saw others as not being very caring. That's the fearfuls. The preoccupieds, though, part of this cognitive complexity that we talk about, that's not like a badge of honor. I'm just saying it's a more sort of cognitively complex understanding of relationships. It probably comes from the fact we find, or research finds, I should say, that there were inconsistent positive messages in their childhood. So one day the child came home and said, look what I made today in art. And they're like, 8 years old. And the adult there says, oh, that's nice. Let's go and put that on the refrigerator. Nice work. Like, it's like a day or so later, the kid comes home with another fantastic 8-year-old piece, of art, and comes home and says, look what I made. Isn't it great? And the adult there says, I mean, it's fine. They go, but don't you like it? Because, like, looking for all that excitement and praise they got last time. And the adult says, I mean, it's fine. Listen, it's second grade art. What do you want? If you can put it in the refrigerator or not, whatever. Right? And the kid's thinking, oh, wait a minute. They're not happy with me this time. I'm getting these disconfirming messages. It must be I was too needy. It must be my art was not as good, right? But it's all internalized. Not that my caregiver there is, hot and cold like a Katy Perry song, right? No, no, no. It's not about them because there's a positive view of them. They want that affection so much. No, no. Instead, the child makes it about themselves. I see. I was wanting too much. I was being unrealistic. I was expecting too much. And so they then believe that they can do things to get other people to love them more. If I'll just be the right sort of person, you'll love me more. And that's preoccupied. Low view of self, positive view of others. Right? And then the last group are the dismissives. Dismissives say, I'm already over it. Right? Their partner is, or your partner is, out, possibly flirting with somebody else, and you're like, whatever, you want to leave me for them? I'm already over it, right? There's a very positive view of self, right? But it's a positive view of self that, because it's a negative view of others, is probably a little problematic. The idea that everybody else is sort of trash, you just can't trust other people, but I'm a real catch. I mean, other people, you can't trust them. They're not worth much. They, that most people just aren't any good, whereas I happen to be one of those few very good ones, right? This person, by the way, probably also came from a not healthy household. Because when they heard the negative messages about themselves, just as the fearful did, when they heard those negative messages about themselves, they, in a sort of wonderful self-protecting way, went, what's the matter with you? Because I know it's not me, right? So as a child, when they heard negative messages about themselves, they realized that they deserve better than that. But in that process, believe that other people, the people you should be depending upon, right, for love and support, you can't depend on them. So you can't depend on anybody. But they do still maintain a positive sense of themselves. This is the least common attachment style. Depending on the numbers you look at, sometimes 15% of people, sometimes less than 10% of people, depending on the numbers. But yeah, it's considered to be the least common attachment style. But there are some, again, this is what they do. So there are some class factors that figure into all of this. People who are children who are raised in the middle class, pretty financially stable homes, are about 2/3 of those are going to end up being in the secured attachment style, more so than any other economic class represented there. There's not a lot of other class associations specific to the other categories, but what you do see is that children from these upper middle class families much more likely to be secured. The reason for that is probably because if you have, and however many parents are in the home, one or two or three, however many parents are in the home, if everything's very economically, tenuous and struggling, the parents might be working a lot of hours, a lot of shifts, maybe more than one job, maybe more than, as in more than two jobs even, right? And because of that, it's not that the parent or the adult doesn't love the child. They just may not be there often enough to give them that attention. By the way, I'm not shaming working parents. As a working parent, married to a working parent, with children we put in daycare, I'm not saying, what I'm saying is that then working as multiple shifts, not seeing their child very much, and then when they're home, not able, just being so worn out, not as able to devote that love and attention to them. I'm really not class shaming here. What I'm saying is that it is part of why it is in all of our benefits to improve the economic standing of individuals and of families is because those things have these very real impact on our lives and our relationships. So that's attachment theory. Now I said, look at yourself, are you A, B, C, D? Well, that's the order I went in, right? So an A is secured, a B is fearful, a C is preoccupied, and a D is dismissive. So consider how you find that. And by the way, there is a survey out there that you can find that will they are willing to plot you out. And if I can come find that survey that's online, I will post it just for your own edification in D2L. Okay, everybody, come back for more on relationships.